Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special select board meeting, June 16th, 2022 at 6 p.m. At this time, we're waiting for two more board members that are on their way before we can have a quorum. So we'll wait for them. In attendance tonight, we have our Representative Nelson Brownell to answer questions, and to give us some light maybe on, maybe not only what's happening with the cannabis, Nelson, but what else is going on upstate would be.
Right now, of course, we're on recess.
Right.
So it's not, it's really a campaign. And as you're aware, I have a few more towns I'm responsible for now.
Yeah, a little different.
Stanford, Reedsboro, Searsburg, Woodford, and part of Pownell. So yeah, it's a different ballgame.
I don't understand
That's
that
sort
part.
of what keeps you a little busy right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing is I'm watching to see what he signs for bills too, because let's face it, we adjourned and all the bills weren't signed that were sent to him yet. And he's signing them as, so I've been watching to see what's going on there. A couple of them he has vetoed. In fact, he's broken the record for vetoing, for what I hear now, better than Howard Dean was the one that held it for a while. So, but he's done his share. Which probably.
It's okay, we're glad you made it.
Some I actually supported, some I didn't, but some
I should have put in the email.
there's a couple that would have hurt small.
I was sure it was
Certainly
7.
wasn't gonna vote for it.
Good.
You know, either a small business.
Good thing I only live down the street.
I don't care if they're fuel dealers or whatever.
Well, right, small business is the backbone for sure of Vermont, that's for sure.
Oh, perfect. I read it.
Perfect.
Sorry, I thought it was 7.
Nope, that's all right. You're only a couple minutes late. It's 6:02. That means I can run 2 minutes late tonight and you won't get mad at me.
Nope. After today, I don't care.
We now have a quorum. I can open the meeting with the planning commission and the development review board. I'd like to call the order. Board members roll call. Mike Gardner.
Angie Rowling.
Jamie Percy.
Approval of the agenda. Marijuana cultivation and retail review and discussion. Public comment and adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So since our last meeting, we've done some research. We've done some bullet points. Nelson, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the table, it'd probably be great to have you up here again, that's for sure. And we can talk about some of the bullet points.
This is belong. State that one, that's. Mine's home. Takes me a little while, guys.
No, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Hope I didn't lose the webpage. I'll get it down.
These are just some bullet points that we've come up with and kind of narrowed down. The licensing tiers of the cannabis establishments. For cultivation, it's a tiered licensing structure, 1 through 6. Each level is determined by canopy, square footage, or plant count. For retail establishment, there's only one tier, it is a standalone license. For manufacturing, production of value-added products, there are 3 tiers of licensure determined size of business, types of extraction, production, and volume of product. The full document is available. This, and I'm sure this is gonna be put on our website, so. Probably Nelson, if it's all right with you, we'll talk about them one at a time, as far as what you can give us any highlights on these or whatever.
Yeah, well,
Or
I was at
whatever.
GovOps when we first talked about cannabis, 4 years ago. And we tried to get a bill through and we worked on it and they finally got something, which is what you're talking about now, but it didn't happen until this year where they actually get out, which is House 701, but if they look it up, you can always go to the state legislative page and look up bills, and if you look up House 701 or Act 86 is what it's called, was signed by the governor. And basically, in that, it'll list different tiers. And when you were talking about the cultivator tiers, there's a small tier 1, 1,000 square feet, licensing fee, $2,250. And you go on up through, and the next tier is about twice the size, a little more, but it's over $5,000. You get a little farther up, and I'll go all the way to tier 5, which costs you $19,500. Now, the wholesaler, their self-licensing fee will be $4,000. Is what this bill is with it. Now, there's sections that I saw where there was, now, of course, that all goes to the state, but there's a cannabis control commission, which you guys can appoint, which I think will be the ones that really need to look at this a little stronger, because in here, and one of the things I read, I reviewed it today to try to get back up to speed on this, because it was a while ago. And what I saw in here with the fee to you guys was like $100 or something. It was minimal and nothing, but you guys can do your own licensing commission for the town. And I don't know what that means as a whole for the thing, but one of the things I was going to tell you is there's a person that worked through this whole process from the bill from the beginning to the end to where it is today. And I don't think he's running for rep this year, but he's a selectman in Wilmington.
Okay.
And if you want, I can give you his name afterwards.
That'd be great.
I don't want everybody calling him.
No, for sure.
And if you talk to him, he's a lawyer as well. But he even worked with the commission and the others when they were doing some of the other drafting. So he's very, very knowledgeable of this, much more so than I. Like I said, I worked on it in committee, but that was 4 years ago.
Right, I
And
understand.
since then, it's been different.
For sure.
But that's why I looked up what I did. And there was a short one, it's Act number 86. I don't know if you had that out there, the regulation relating to cannabis license fees and regulations of the medical cannabis registry. There's a piece, I'm gonna leave all this with you because I printed them out today. I don't need them. And 701 is the other one that has, this one is probably the most detailed because it goes into everything from the seeds to testing the strength, because that's the other side of it. In order to be able to be sold, there's a limitation on what you can have with the chemicals that's in it, that's grown. I'll make it clear, it's not what we used to have in the 60s, folks. It's much different and much more potent, and certainly needs to be regulated. In fact, there's a municipal side of it that can be pretty even stronger for people that have cancer and other things. So it's very well regulated in that sense. And it will be for anyone that's going to be licensed to sell it, because they're going to have regular tests of their product and so forth. So, but that was one of the hangups for a long time, was the governor wasn't for this bill, and a couple others, certainly the state police and others, simply because they don't know how they're going to test for it when you're driving. And it's still a problem, but they've come up with some procedures that they now can use to do like a road test. But when they test your blood, cannabis will stay in you for a month or more after you have it. So it's not the same as alcohol.
Right.
But that was the big concern. But I went through one of the state police came to the Capitol, and they did the whole test around a car with showing it and the rest. And I think it'll be, as far as our highways and stuff, I think it'll be pretty safe. I'll say it won't be any worse than you have with your DWI. That's about where I look at it. But that's the tier part of it, is what I said there. What was the other questions you had?
There's some bullet points, that, I think that covers our whole tier. The next bullet point that we came up with was, and just, obviously this is just an informational thing, and actually, There should be one of those right there, I believe right there now. The requirements for all establishments, detailed information about owners and operators of the establishment. Owners, participants, and controllers of establishments must be 21 years old and go through a criminal background check. Copy of their driver's license or government issued ID. Full set of fingerprints. Description of any criminal action against each person, result of any conviction if applicable. Description of any civil actions against each person. Description of any administrative actions taken against each person. Description of any disciplinary action taken against each person regarding any license, registration, or certification they might hold. And description of any previous license denial. That sounds to me like it's just a whole background check, legal ease type thing.
That's what it is, but you should be aware that there's a section, I don't think I put it out anywhere I can find it quick. A section where if you, say you were minor offense with cannabis years ago, and it'll be on your record. There's certain things where they're gonna look at some of those people because they feel they were wrongfully convicted because of the way things stand. They're actually gonna give those people some priority in licensing and some other things so that they can try to adjudicate some of the wrongs. And basically, so when you say they're gonna check backgrounds and so forth, there are some things within your background check that will not carry the weight of some, like if you were a felon, they certainly aren't gonna give it to you. But there are some minor type things that they're gonna take a look the other way. Tara?
I just wanted to just clarify, I think Rebecca put this together so detailed so that we understood as a town that the state really regulates this like as much as possible. And if we have our own commission, we can't regulate any more than they already are. So it's kind of like a, not a waste, but.
Oversight.
Yeah. Redundant. So we were thinking maybe if we had a contact person, instead of it being a commission, might be a better option.
There's the Cannabis Control Board. They're the ones that sets all the guidelines. They're the ones that's gonna have to deal with the licensing and some of the rest. But you still have local control. I assume that we had a vote already to opt in on selling and so forth here.
So that's, the people have voted, but the select board has not opted in.
Okay, but the municipality itself had the vote and they voted?
Yes.
Yes.
And they voted yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your first start. And if you get there, now it's up to you. But I think the commission is right to go with, and I'll tell you why. I think you need people like a DRB member, a planning board member, because these people need to go through a permitting process, just like anything else. You might not be able to control so much what they're selling, but you can control the space. You can control the environment that they're in. There's lots of things that you can do. Signage is really restricted.
Signage, nuisance, and any of the regular zoning, yes.
Yeah.
But that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but that can be a lot based on where people want to set up and what they want to do. You know, if somebody wants to set up in the middle of the schoolyard,
Well, the state wouldn't give them a license to do that, so
I would
that's
hope.
not even a concern, really. But,
Because they're supposed to be 500 feet from a school, correct?
right. But as far as the growing of it, the cultivation, we don't have any control over that, as far as we're aware of.
Again, I'm going to recommend that you talk to the person that I'm going to give you the name to, because that was one of the things I know when I was in GovOps 4 years ago, we discussed that. And I thought the local bylaws still had teeth in them.
We cannot change any bylaws specific for cannabis.
Oh, no, it's got to be treated like any other business.
Exactly.
Right.
But your bylaws, when I remember, for business could be pretty strict.
I think there's still some teeth there. I do kind of disagree with now with you, but with some of the stuff that they're saying we can't control, I think we still do have some of that local control. And I think, in my opinion, I'm kind of leaning towards what you're leaning towards, Nelson, is is a planning commission member and a DRB member and maybe one select board member and, you know, that's your commission. I don't think you need
Well, I would
40
put-
people on it, but
No, I would go between 5 and 7.
Yeah.
I would get a business person,
yes,
if I could, someone in town. There's lots of small businesses in town.
that's right.
And you
And some
can
good
pick up-
business people.
And you can pick up one of those, and then I'll tell you the ideal thing, if you could find a retired doctor or lawyer.
And then those are great ideas. And that's,
Those are what I would put on this, and then from that point, you'll get a wide view from different angles, from different people. And that'll help you in your way you want to deal with it.
and I think that's tremendously important actually, is that wide view. Because I think if we get too narrow-minded, then we could potentially get ourselves in a situation we don't want to be in.
Well, when,
Good or bad, you know.
Yeah.
when we were working on this, one of the things was people were thinking this was money in the bank and they were all rushing and wanting it.
Right.
Don't think that way.
Not at all.
I mean, you can stay open-minded, but do not think this is a moneymaker for your community. It's really another business in your town. And basically, that's where it is. And yes, you'll get some fee, but it won't be much from what I read. And the real thing is, because when we originally did this, we had it, the town could put 1% on.
But if we did it for that, we'd have to do it for all
That's right.
the businesses.
Yeah,
And just.
you couldn't do it just to one.
Right.
But initially, we were talking about that and it didn't happen. So that never made it through. But I would say, based on my gut says, let's face it, for years, we've been pretty lenient on our zoning. We haven't been fist down on a lot of things. And something like this, I think you really need to read your zoning very carefully, because there are things in there that you can do that you don't think you can do, just by reading your bylaws, okay? Especially for businesses. Can someone come back on you and say, well, you're treating me different than Joe Small? You can always follow in your bylaws as long as it's in it.
Right.
Right.
If it isn't, then you can't. Okay,
The requirements for all financiers of cannabis establishment, all sources of capital available to the applicant must be disclosed. All financiers must be at least 21 years old. Background check on them must be performed and required to ensure that financiers comply with all federal and state laws governing financial institutions.
and that's, the commission will take in,
And these are just bullet points from the commission, obviously.
they're gonna take a very strong look at anywhere in the state. It's called a control panel. You'll have your commission. I wanna make sure I get the cannabis control panel.
Yep.
And they're your first line of defense, I guess. If you feel something out of whack, don't be afraid to call those people. They're paid by the state, they're working for the state, they're there to help you as well as they are to help the applicants.
The next one is requirements for compliance and management. They must provide contingency and continuity plan that addresses the dispersal and or disposal of inventory in the event of an abrupt closure. They must submit a timeline for beginning operations. The test they will comply with municipal ordinances. The test they will will comply with required inspections or permits.
And that falls right on your bylaws, those things right there.
Yep. Requirements for establishments that plan to hire employees. Provide an overview of positions and staffing levels. Provide overview of general roles and responsibility of the staff. Provide an overview of management structure. Provide a plan for hiring and training, including safety training. And again, I think that this is all from that control board.
Yeah, they're gonna look at that strong. That doesn't mean that when you're giving a permit for a business, you can't ask how many people you're gonna employ. When you employ people, what can we expect for employees? Reasonable. Yeah.
These are all questions that the planning commission and DRB can ask if this were to go as a business, go to them in a public hearing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, you guys are involved. Requirements regarding taxation and banking. They must provide proof of insurance, provide documentation of a bond or escrow for cessation of cannabis establishment. Basically, they have to have money put aside in case they need to close their business. They need to provide proof of current Vermont tax compliance. They need to give authorization for the board to release this information to other state agencies. They must show a deposit account with a financial institution. They must provide a cash management plan
Yeah, that'll be all done by the control board.
by that control board. Those things are totally outside of town control. That's 100% state.
That's running their business. That's what they'll be looking at when they do the licensing. They'll want to make sure that they meet these standards, or otherwise they're not going to issue a license. If they don't issue a license, you don't have to worry about it in your town. You won't be able to work.
The requirements for security, and this is detailed in Rule 2, full text here. Rule 2, regulation of cannabis establishments. It's pdf.vermont.gov. It includes things such as keeping detailed lists of all operations and transactions, a record of everyone who comes into the establishment, an inventory record, waste logs, testing samples, operating procedures, etc. There are also requirements for packaging, no loose products, warning labels, and etc. Restrictions on who is allowed to visit an establishment. All establishments are subject to inspection for compliance to all regulations. Establishments are not allowed to purchase from non-licensed establishments or entities. Establishments must document and report all theft or loss. At the cultivation sites, all visitors must be registered for time entry and time leaving. Most cultivation establishments are not open air, but rather indoor facilities with security. If the operation is open air, fencing, motion sensor floodlights, and cameras are all required to secure the plants. The requirement is that the security equipment must be able to identify anyone inside or outside the perimeter. And also the footage from the cameras must go to an external cloud or computer system, so destruction of the cameras won't destroy the security footage.
I did a tour of 2 places that did medical marijuana. So they could show their establishments. Both places grew it, both places sold it. And both places had their kitchens where they did the brownies, cookies and everything. So it was a full-blown operation. Couldn't get in the door without someone actually letting you in because it's so secure. Cameras everywhere, all that security you talk about. These places that these people are running have a huge product inventory usually. They don't want anybody in there. It's no different than, I assume, if you went down to one of our local stores that sell the alcohol beverages. You've got something that's you're licensed for. You don't want to take a jeopardy of getting somewhere where people will take and come at you in a way that you end up losing your license. So I think you'll find that these places are pretty secure. The harder ones are going to be the agricultural farming ones, unless, a lot of people aren't doing dairy anymore. They do it in their barn. They might clean up their barn and do it inside. There's lots of ways that people can do this. And I'm hoping that some of our farmers actually come back with a way to make money and stay in business, be truthful with you. Because, dairy prices are gone.
Farmland is really, really statewide. It's not just here. It's,
Everywhere.
I haven't been upstate. It is an off topic. I haven't been upstate, very much in a few years, and wasn't up that way too awful long ago. And things that used to be really nice fields are now pretty brushy, or they're nice manicured lawns. And
We're losing a very large amount of farms every year.
yeah.
We know it, and we're trying hard to find a way to
And
turn that around.
I think that's a tremendously important thing in the state of Vermont to do anyway, because that's what we are.
Well, your legislature for a long, long time was basically farmers,
Right?
the majority of them. Now, I think I can count the farmers that are on the legislature probably on one hand.
Yeah.
Now, some are retired, so they still live on the farm, but they don't necessarily do farming anymore. So then you can count them on both hands, but.
But no, I think you're absolutely right. I bet you if you went back 30, 40 years, you know, it's not like it was an ancient time ago. It wasn't all that long
Back when
ago.
Charlie was on the board.
That's right. No,
I mean,
that's
when he was
true.
Up there. I mean, it was very obvious at that time that the majority of the people, that's what they were. And let's face it, the period that they hold these sessions is really the winter time when you don't do much on a farm. And there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that. No, it's true. It's
And,
absolutely true.
yeah, so, but that's what that is. Like I said, I'll leave these things with you. Some of these are what you had already
Right.
talked about, but they'll certainly be a thing. I just wrote notes on the back for what acts or what. But you can go to, one of the easy ways and the quickest way to find these things is to go to the governor's page, look up what he has signed for bills for 2021 and 2022, and you'll see all the bills that he's signed, and then there's a statement of what they are. Then you can pick these out pretty quick, because then you know they've been enacted, they're law. Where if you go to the legislative page and you type in cannabis and look up, you'll probably get, I don't know, maybe 17 or 20 bills. All of them doesn't necessarily mean that they made it through the whole legislature
Process. Yeah.
and got to where it is. But there's some good reading in there if people wanted to see some of the things that was discussed about cannabis. Because you can see what the legislature was thinking and what it was, but the bills that actually made it to them are best to go to the government page.
Do any of the board members or anybody in the room have any questions for Nelson before we open it up to the public comment? Fred?
Yeah, I was just a little unclear on what advantage it would be for the town to create a commission, cannabis control commission. I guess based on another question, would the Vermont Cannabis Control Board welcome input at the local level? And would they offer deference to what the local level needs to determine?
The bill actually does just that. It says to have a cannabis control commission for locally and let the select board pick those bodies, and one of them can be a member of the select board. Their goal is to have that local control, so to speak, and they're allowed to talk to the control board. That it's an in-between between them and the business that the control board has licensed. It lets them know what the community has for issues and so forth that they can deal with. And I think the other side of it is that when you're looking at businesses like this, you got this business that's coming, might be just the growing side of it and maybe one store, but you could have all of a sudden the medical dispensary. You could have a ton of things coming at you, because you got to remember one thing, you're a border town.
Right.
And border towns attract different things that you might not see anywhere else. So your local commission can sort of look at that, address those issues, and I believe they can make changes to the bylaws, but they're gonna have to be within the allowed amount that's there. But if you look at, 117-24, I think it is, 24, chapter 24, 117, you'll see there's lots of things that's in there. I remember years ago when I had to write our first bylaws. It's just, there's a lot more added to that too. If you look at the laws that's passed, they've done things to even enhance that for people in municipalities because of noise and other things that have been happening. So, no, I would strongly support a commission for those reasons. It just gives the local group a voice. And let's face it, the select board will be in control of them. You're going to appoint them, they're one of your committees.
Well, that's what my follow-up was. It gives us a voice, but is it going to be heard, listened to, reacted to in a favorable way? Will our concerns actually be addressed, or will it just be?
It'll be listened to.
Yeah.
They will give you an answer. You might not always like the answer, but let's face it, we in public office lots of times give people answers that they don't like. I mean, it's just the way of life. They're gonna do what's within statute, what's within the law, and they're gonna tell you that. And if there's something they can tell you you can do because of your question, that's a plus. And that's really what you're looking for.
Carl?
Carl Strohmeyer, DRB. I have a question. Are there any local boards that have been set up yet in the state of Vermont?
I have no idea that.
Okay.
I just don't know.
I mean, it's easier to go upon
If you come,
somebody else's,
Well,
somebody else go first.
well, contact the Cannabis
I just-
Control Board.
Yeah.
And ask them.
Reach out to 'em.
Tara?
I think I saw that you can use one of the boards that's already created, right? Like if we wanted to appoint DRB as our cannabis commission.
You have the right to appoint the members to the commission.
Okay, so it could be,
Could be another board that's still in place. It could be something totally different. It's based on your conversation after you as a board will have a discussion of what are you really looking for and what type of feedback do you want to have so you understand the process. You know, the planning commission has a different goal. It's doing bylaws. It's doing the regulations. The DRB is conditional use usually. They're looking at things under a certain condition that didn't meet your bylaws. Now, if your bylaws meet everything that this business is going to do, you have no control. Where the DRB will set those conditions, and the conditions can be very clear. They could be that your hours of operation will be A to B. You know, all the questions that one of these things, you had your full bullet. How many people can you have? How much your parking? You know, the business, when you do that, well, you go through the DRB, our businesses, and they'll see what it is. That's the sort of thing I think by having a commission sort of gives you. And on top of that, it'll be good to have somebody from outside that isn't in this group now.
I have a follow-up question. I understand getting views from different perspectives if you have a commission. Do you feel it's inappropriate to have like just a contact person to do the same sort of fielding and just?
I don't think they get the experience or put as much into it. If they're part of the commission, they know they're part of the commission, they'll put in way more effort than somebody you call up once in a while. Because I'm going to give you a name that you probably can call up and get information. He's going to tell you what's probably in the statute, what the law is. Well, he knows it is, and he might be able to tell you some of the hurdles that they had getting it to where it is and where it got passed. And a lot of those things are probably going to be similar to what you're trying to figure out. And he can say, oh, we had that, here's what happened, we had these, because when you're on a committee and you're doing a bill, you get testimony from all sides. We get testimony from people who are doing it now, the medical and so forth, people who want to do it, and then people who are strongly against it. They'll come to this committee and they'll testify, and we hear all those sides, and then we try to blend it into something that's reasonable, and yet we can get through to make sure all of our neighboring communities are having this. And we're already, I think, feel in some ways left behind a little bit in what could have been maybe a better income source. And that's what, and I'm not sure if that's not going to change over time. I think communities are going to feel that if they're having this and they're having this traffic in their town and so forth, they've got to find a way to, which maybe this commission could figure out by talking to that board, how can we be supplemented as a community? You know, I can date myself how old I am here. The racetrack is a prime example. We had that, we had all the traffic, and we got a few $100s a day, while the state got thousands, because we had a bad deal. And I think that's what our commission can do with the board up there, is do some discussions to say, hey, especially if they really take off like you think they're going to and they establish yourself, then you've got some teeth when you negotiate and say, hey, look, you're making X.
And I think the CCB, the Cannabis Control Board, has submitted some, or done some suggestion that the town gets some of the excise tax.
Yeah, that's what they said to us when we
Well, I got news for you. We as a committee and was looking at specifically town getting some pretty good, it didn't happen though, but not as much as we thought.
Carl Schultz, DRB again. I know the DRB can put conditions on a permit. Does the language allow the commission, local commission, to do the same thing?
I don't think so.
So right now, the only board that would be able to, besides the select board, to put conditions would be DRB?
correct.
I think that's true. I think the commission will be suggesting to the planning commission and elsewhere if they see something so that the bylaws could be changed to meet certain needs. There's a process you have to go through. You wouldn't want a commission to come in here and say, we're going to dictate the law and this is what it is, without going through due process, which means hearings and all the rest.
Of course, but, I think we could, I know I'm prejudiced because I'm on the DRB, but I think the DRB could do, the board could do exactly what you're talking about. If they had a regular hearing, they would be able to take input from the community and the boards and be able to have the hearing and be able to put teeth in it. Whereas.
Whatever your bylaw allows you.
I'm just, as I said, I'm prejudiced, I should say prejudiced, but I'm on the DRB, so.
And the DRB has all the authority you just said. If it's a business, you can do all those things you just said.
Correct.
Because that's your bylaw. So it's not that you have the teeth now.
Correct.
You know, I can show you permits where people in the town were given permits that said you can store anything and you can sell anything and nothing else was ever said on the permit when it went through the DRB. And that permit sits in somebody's hands that we wish would didn't, but I can show you that. And I'm sure if you went to court, that's the first thing I'd pull up if I was the individual.
Correct.
You have the authority, you have the ability to do it as long as you do it within the guidelines of your bylaws. You can't.
Correct, correct.
You can't just.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that if you got the cannabis board and you said, okay, we want to set the terms, times, we don't want, okay.
You can do.
No, we could do that, but there would be no, the cannabis board couldn't do that. It could, yeah.
I think we're debating something back and forth right now.
I think.
That doesn't need to be debated right now because ultimately the select board is going to decide whether or not we create a cannabis board.
Correct.
Okay. And I think Nelson has given us his opinion on what he thinks should happen. And we can take that and we can go with that. I don't think debating it right here is the way to do it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, Carl. I don't want to get into that even with public comment because, you know, Nelson has given us his opinion. I mean, excuse me. You know, he's been through the zoning, he's been through the DRB, he's been through the select board in our own town. He knows how things work here.
Right. Now-
Okay, or don't work, what does and doesn't. I mean, because there's things that don't work, you know, or, you know, for whatever reason. So I don't want to get into that debate. And I think on the surface, I agree with him because I think that having that difference of opinion now, that, and it depends on how we set it up. That board could say, come up with suggestions on, let's say that Fred was coming in with a business and he wanted to have it. You know, that board could be the first, that control board or whatever we call it here in town, could be the first place that Fred goes. I know, and I'm just being theoretical here. I don't know how to set it up, but
Yeah, well, be aware of one thing. You appoint, set it for a time limit. If you have that many members, set one for 1 year, one for 2, one for 3 years, you get to run this commission.
right.
And the key is, at any point, you can write some rules on how you want to appoint the commission. Let's face it, the Canister Control Board and the legislature thought it was a good idea for you guys to have a commissioner, it wouldn't be there.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, because of all the input they probably had. I would just make sure that when you appoint it, you set it for a term. It says, we'll try this for 5 years.
Right.
We'll try it for 1 year, whatever you want.
Right.
Then that sort of meets the concern and go from there. But I truly believe that you're better off having some people different than what you have now.
What I took from the last Zoom meeting with the Cannabis Control Board was just that, is that the commission is basically an informational gathering for the board and for the control board, and whether it's pros or cons, and you have one point of contact from that board generally, or whoever the select board points, to take in any of the concerns back and forth, and they'll take them under advisement, and supposedly will work with the towns.
Right. I think we got a lot of homework to do on that part of
yeah.
it, for sure.
I mean, it's,
When you read these bills, you will see that the legislature has given the control board some specific things they want reported back at specific times.
I saw that.
You can do the same with your control board, okay? You can say, I want to report every 6 months on what you're doing, where you got and how far you got. And specific things, you just have to talk and decide what you're really looking for this board to do. You might want them to be the one to say, how many other cannabis control commissions are throughout the state? I want you to report that back to me here in 2 weeks. There's things, I know how busy a selectman can be, board, so that the real thing is you want people that can help you get things done and put them to work and make it work. And one thing I wanted to do, I said it to Mike earlier before I depart. You don't hear this too often, but thank you for your hard work. I know, I sat in those seats. And as much as you hear, you're getting a lot done in my mind. I've seen things that I wasn't sure was going to happen as quick as they did, and I'm very pleased with it.
Thank
And I
you.
want to thank you guys very much,
Thank you.
including the members that aren't here. You've done good.
We're working hard at it, that's for sure. And it's,
Not always easy.
as you know, you had that discussion when you first came through the door. It's,
You're going to get both sides, no doubts about it. But that's part of wearing that hat, folks.
it is. You have to take it. So I'd like to open up, if everyone in here is done, I'd like to open up to, public comment. Please state your name, and who you're addressing your comment to. I don't know if we're gonna get into a huge question and answer system, but, we'll determine that as we go. Anybody with their hand up, Hannah? Charlie?
Right, Ian Boyce.
Ian?
Sorry. I brought some papers there, and it's been on the news, the federal government is starting to get involved with legalization of it. Now, how far they've gotten, I guess it's passed the House, so far according to the information I brought down to you. And they're working on it, and I guess next it goes to the Senate, to the President. When you set up this, be sure that what their regulations are gonna be when everything's set up for here. You don't want to set the board and then all of a sudden the government comes in and says, well, this is what it's gonna be. Then everything that you try to obtain or achieve is sidetracked and has to go right back to square one, not back to square one, but readjusted itself per what the government is doing, or what the new regulations are gonna be. got a library today, and there's like 30 some odd pages on it that they're working on. And it's been pro and non-pro, and right now it's pro. So how far it's gone since that report's been, bills are voted on, I don't know. But that's something to consider. That's just be aware of what the federal government's doing when you set up this board or what your stuff is gonna be. I'm not trying to step on anybody's foot, please don't. I'm interested in seeing this thing progress on a logical thing that's gonna benefit the town. But that's just another factor. I don't know if people are aware of that, what the federal government's doing. And it sounds to me like you're trying to get more regulation through the sale of it. But in the bottom line, it's gonna be like great revenues for the country if it is legalized. And how's that gonna play into taxes and everything else, the committees and the committee's rules and the town's rules? That's just something to consider. Thank you for your time. I'm just trying to help out somebody.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is, it sounds like it's in committee. Can I say a little bit about how they'll progress it?
Absolutely, because I think that's probably,
Basically, you've got somebody in a committee that'll put a bill forward. He then will work with legislative counsel to make sure it's legally processed of what he's doing. It then gets in front of the committee. If the person in the committee will take it off the wall, besides just hearing about talk on the outside, because what they do, a lot of bills will come to a committee, they call it, they put them on a wall, so they're all pinned up. And the chair of that committee will then take off the one usually, and then you'll talk about it and you'll move forward with on that bill. Some things never come off the wall, some things do. But if that committee has that bill, you can tell by looking at what committee in the federal government has it. And then if you look at it, you'll see what it is, and then follow it through that committee, because first it's got to come out of committee. And usually if it's got to do with money, it's then going to go to a money committee, because they'll want to have their say on where the money's coming and where it's going. And then it might make it to the full floor, and then let's say the House will vote on it. Then it's got to go to the Senate. The Senate might vote on it, or they might make major changes to it and send it back to the House with the changes. Then we have to decide what to do, whether we agree with the changes, don't agree with the changes, maybe make some other changes. Send it back to the Senate, and eventually they'll come where it gels together, and then we'll pass the bill. Then it goes to the governor. In that case, it'll go to the president, and he has to like it, or it gets vetoed and it's dead. But that's the process. But the talk in the beginning is always out there. I mean, the big boogaboo that they're all talking about these days is guns.
Right.
I mean, when you get done, when you see what gets passed in the bill, you'll be surprised to see how much really gets passed. You know, we've gone through the same thing in our state. Our state already has a limit on the clip size and the age that someone can buy a automatic rifle and things of that. That's been passed a while ago. And so the government's just talking about what a lot of states have already done like that. So now they could get a lot stricter. Usually what happens is the government will pass something, and then the state is allowed to pass a bill that is more strict than the bill that comes from the federal government. You know, so you have to sort of look at what's going on and what bill is more strict and which one isn't. And that's way down the road, so.
We do have one more public comment, but I just want to real quick, Carl just showed me that Chester, Vermont did establish a cannabis control commission that initially will be staffed by the members of Selectboard with the understanding that public may apply to join. And it's, they're running it much like when you apply for selling alcohol, a liquor license. That's sort of how their process is going to work.
perfect. Thank you, Carl.
Discuss that kind of ourselves too.
And I know Jim Winchester favors that approach as well. He thinks that works very, very well.
We had one ready, hand up, Hannah.
Yes. Take times you can unmute.
Hi, it's Doug Kolakowski and Shauna Kolakowski. I just wanted to mention that, considering that this commission would lead mostly to the decision over the retail sales aspect of it, that maybe considering whether you as the select board is going to opt in and allow retail sales first, that might be a good starting stone for this. Thank you.
Any more comments, Hannah? Anybody else have any questions or concerns or? Good. I think we have some homework to do as a board. As I said before, I think we need to decide whether or not we're going to opt in and make that decision. That's probably our next step. And then, as a board, and then we can move forward from there, whether we do or don't create a commission, whether we appoint someone or however we decide as a board to handle that. I think the town itself spoke at the vote. I think it was pretty overwhelming, actually, if I remember
I
correctly.
was surprised.
So I think that's, where we're at. Nelson, I appreciate you coming in, totally and thoroughly, explained it out, really well and gave us some insight onto where we can certainly, get some more information and make educated decisions.
Yes, thank you very much.
No problem. If I can be of further help somewhere, let me know.
For sure. For sure.
Thank you very much.
Be careful what you wish for.
I was gonna say, I'm not on the commission.
Be careful because we may be reaching out and I appreciate the fact that we can for sure, because you know what, it's been a long time coming. It's been not the cannabis thing, but the continuity between all the boards and commissions in the town. I know that's a goal that you had for a long time. And, you started it and worked it and got it headed, and we're still heading in that positive direction and pretty quick right now. And it's really nice to see that, it's really nice to see, our state rep coming down and talking to us and being here available. And I'm not sure we always had that. I'm not sure that we have. So I, for one, really appreciate being able to have that, because it helps us make that educated decision. When you were on the select board,
I'm one point of view, guys. Remember that.
But that's true. But you also, you're involved upstate, you know what's going on up there, and you're not just sitting in a chair taking up space.
In 30 years, we are setting.
Right. And I think I personally think that is,
Hey, Jim.
I think that knowledge is for us, for this board, not to take advantage of that. Not to take advantage of your knowledge sitting on this board for 30 years. We're crazy.
Hey, Mike.
We're crazy. Hi, Jimmy.
How you doing?
Good. Whoops. Do you have any, questions for Nelson?
No, I think the state knows how to handle syntax very well. Cigarettes, gambling, booze, they'll do a good job.
I just,
And the selectmen are in charge. They have to vote on our liquor licenses every year. It has worked well for as long as I've been here. All you guys.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we're headed in the right direction, and for us not to, for any select board, this one or a future one, not to utilize all of our resources is kind of crazy. My ego's not that big. That's for sure. It's not, never will be. We don't have any more public comment. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, Jimmy?
No, really.
Okay.
Went done well.
James Harrison said hi.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my God, he's still going.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wow.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for attending.
40 years, yeah, wow.
Yeah, he represents his neck wards.
Yeah, he
Are
does.
you gonna be okay with leaving?
He served the governor.
I am gonna be
off.
It isn't even 7.
I know.
It's 6:50.
Their recording
Jimmy
stopped.
Winchester down there when you see him.
Hannah, did that
Nice
stop?
guy. You did a good job.